Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us every week here as we talk about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. Something I am so honored and blessed to be able to do, something I feel so passionately about, something that I have been involved. John, can you boost that headphone level here just a little bit on my end here? Something that I am so grateful to be able to do. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So this is Memorial Weekend. Can you believe it? I can't. I can't believe that this is Memorial Weekend already. Probably mainly because the weather. The weather has been, I'll pick my words carefully. The weather's been crappy, okay? The weather's been junky. A lot of cold, a lot of rain. Well, rain lately. Northeast winds. We went to my granddaughter Addison's ball game in Bay City, softball game in Bay City earlier in the week, last week. And we sat out there in winter clothes, gloves, hats, because the wind coming off the bay was just so cold. And the northeast wind, come on, can we get a break from the northeast winds, please? So that's why I think it doesn't feel like Memorial Weekend. Although there is hope as I look at the forecast. This weekend, as you are hearing the show, starts to look a little better, and next week looks pretty good. So maybe as we get into the unofficial kickoff of the summer season, Mother Nature will start to cooperate and give us more summer-like weather, at least not fall-like weather like we have had. Memorial Weekend, Memorial Day. You know, for a lot of people, it's a chance to hit the golf course, to go out fishing, to fire up the grill, maybe some late-season turkey hunting, looking for morel mushrooms. But let's not forget the real reason for Memorial Day, and that is to honor those who have given their lives in service to our country. I feel very strongly about this. I'm not a veteran, and maybe that's why one of the reasons I feel strongly about this. I'm not a vet. I didn't do my part. While many of you were signing up to give away a few years of your life to go to some far-off or God-forsaken part of this world to defend the freedom of the rest of the people in the country like me who didn't go. And honestly, there are very few things in my life that I have a true regret for, but that's one of them. The fact that I didn't take a few years when I was a young kid and sign up and do my part. I didn't. I'm embarrassed about it. And I really think those of you who did. So, you know, you think about the people who did sign up, who did go off, who didn't come back, and their families, what they went through. I can't even imagine it. So as you are on the golf course this weekend, or out in the backyard grilling this weekend, or on the water, or whatever you're doing that's fun, please just take a minute to remember the reason why we have Memorial Weekend and those who did not come back. Okay, so this last week has been an interesting one for me. I haven't been fishing yet. I don't have the new Angler Quest yet. But, you know, on one hand, it's like, you know, I really don't care too much that I don't have it because, again, because of the crappy weather, the cold weather, the strong northeast winds. They're keeping a lot of people on shore anyway. But I do feel bad because on the days when folks can get out, the fishing's been pretty good. And my beloved skinny water has been pretty good. Well, let's just hope by the time I get out there that the skinny water is still doing good. But in the meantime, I've been telling you throughout this entire spring season that my goal this year was to get my grandson Trent a turkey. Trent is a hardcore. The salespeople go by here and they just yell every time. Every time, John. Now, in their defense, there is no light outside the studio that says on air. But it's always the salespeople. I guess that's just in the character of salespeople. They're loud. They're just gregarious people. Anyway, I've been telling you that my goal has been to take my grandson Trent out and get him his first turkey. Trent's not a little kid, right? He's 23 years old. He's a young man. He's a hunter, but he's never turkey hunted before. So I asked Trent last fall during deer season. I said, hey, Trent, what do you think of turkey hunting next spring? He's like, I'm all in, Grandpa. Let's go. I said, okay, I will take you out. I will try to teach you a little bit about what I know about turkey hunting, and we'll try to get you a bird. So we have been out maybe almost half a dozen times this year with absolutely no success. But last weekend, Trent and I went out to my buddy Scott Gatza. Scott Gatza has been so extraordinarily generous in allowing me access to hunt his property. He has a very well-managed piece of land quite close to where we live, so it's so very convenient. Scott has allowed me to take my grandson Carter out there. Carter shot his first doe out there. I've taken birds out there, and he's been allowing Trent and I to hunt out there as well. So we were out, and thank you, Scott. I really, really do appreciate it. So last weekend we were out there. We got out there, I think it was like 2-ish in the afternoon. We thought it might be our last sit, so we said, okay, we're going to stay right here till the end of shooting hours. So we knew it was going to be a good 6-hour sit. The weather was actually finally cooperating that day. It wasn't blowing quite so hard. It was a little bit warmer. I had high hopes we were going to get a bird to gobble, maybe come in. Trent was going to get a shot. After a couple of hours, I decided, okay, I'm going to get a little bit more. Okay, so the setup is we're sitting over a food plot. I've got 2 hen decoys in front of us. One of us a feeding hen and one a hen that's up on, I don't want to say on alert, but she's looking around. And these are the good, high quality, pretty expensive. I don't know if they're the flambeau decoys or what they are, but they're the very realistic, very lifelike decoys. So we've got 2 of those in front of us at about 25 yards. We're in a blind. I'm on the right. Trent is on my left. He's using my Mossberg 835 Ultimag 12-gauge shotgun. I said, Trent, for your first bird, yes, please use a shotgun, not a bow. So at one point in the middle of the afternoon, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get more aggressive on my calls. So I did some cutting and some yelps, and all of a sudden, boom! The minute I let that call go from the north, from the left, at about 75 yards, we hear a bird gobble. Like, holy cow. And this is, when birds don't gobble, they drive me crazy because you don't know they're coming in. So this bird gobbles. So we look over to the left, and just barely through the trees, we can see a bird strutting over there. Now, I don't know how long he had been there, and until I became more aggressive on my calls, I don't think he was going to gobble. Long story short, I could not get that bird to commit, and eventually he wandered back off. So we're thinking, all right, okay, I think we can get out one more time. Trent says, yeah, I can get out after work one day this week. So last Tuesday, I think it was, Trent gets out of work at 4:30. I told Scott we're going to be at his house at 4:45, and we're in the blind by 5 o'clock. But this time, I did something different. I brought a Jake decoy with me. So I put a Jake over a hen out in that same food plot. Now, my experience has been that especially late in the season, if you get a bird that sees a Jake decoy in there with a hen decoy, they usually can't resist it. So we get out there about 5 o'clock. Starts to rain. The weather's not the best, but, it's all right. We're going to make the most of it. We got a 3.5-hour sit till the end of shooting hours. About an hour into the sit, in fact, I can tell you it was 6:05. I'd been calling a little bit. It was kind of windy day, so I actually got the box call out, and I got a little loud, a little aggressive there just to let the woods know what was going on. 6:05, to the south of us, to the right of us, we see a hen come in. Okay, well, this is good. This hen's going to come in, and I'm going to purr to her, and I'm going to talk to her, and maybe she'll bring a tom in with her. Well, she did bring a tom in with her, and it was a nice bird, an adult bird. He sees that Jake decoy. He comes running into that Jake decoy. He puffs up. He struts. He walks around the decoy. Trent levels the front bead of that shotgun, and boom, he levels that bird and drops him in his tracks. Oh, man, how cool. How cool is that? Nice job, Trent. He got his first bird. I think I was probably as excited or more excited than he was. I'll talk more about this later, but this thrill of continuing this legacy of hunting and getting my grandson Trent his first bird, it was so rewarding to me. I'm done hunting. I cannot top for this year, for this turkey season. I can't do better than that. Thank you, Scott. Congrats to Trent. It was so much fun. I've got video on the Facebook page. Okay, on this week's radio show, coming up after the break, Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters out of Linwood Beach Marina talks about getting out of the day-to-day rut of trolling and trying something new, including his techniques. Then Dan Cooke from the Michigan Wildlife Council. In our second hour, the guy who single-handedly changed the way spearfishing is looked at in Michigan, John Durtka, joins me. Then Steve Windom of MUCC. We'll probably talk about the golf outing and more. And then in hour number 3, Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine on summertime fishing. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and my email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's going to be a great show, and I'm so glad that you're with us. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky, WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots. It is the food plot planting season. Now, if you are into food plots, and so many people are across the state these days, I recommend that you take a look at Michigan-based, family-owned Killer Food Plots. You're going to put a lot of time into these plots. You're going to put a fair amount of money into these plots, and you want the best success that you can, right? You want the best results you can get. Rich Krazan and the folks at Killer Food Plots are dedicated to helping you out. I recommend you take a look at them. Go to their website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Take a look at the different services they offer, the different seed blends they offer. And check out, by the way, the newly revamped or revised or reinvigorated or what's another R word? The Killer Food Plots podcast is back. And each month I talk to Rich about getting the most from your food plot planting efforts. Again, the website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Okay, I was recently at Linwood Beach Marina. I was there with Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis, to talk with and meet a boat dealer, a northern Michigan boat dealer. While I was there, though, I had a very interesting conversation with a couple of the Linwood Beach Marina charter captains. Jeff Godey of the Michigan Experience was there, and also Jason Graham of Send It Charters. And it was so interesting for me to sit there and listen to these two guys talk back and forth. It's like, man, I'm getting a master's class in trolling from two veteran and respected Saginaw Bay charter captains, and I'm just going to sit back and listen. But it got me thinking when I heard Jeff and Jason talking about how easy it is to get into a rut. And this is more than trolling, right? For me, at least, it's more than trolling. It's more than fishing. It's hunting and life in general. I tend to find myself getting into a rut. If something works, I do the same thing, and if it works, I do it again. And I almost don't have the ability to sometimes think outside the box. Well, as we get into this summertime fishing season, I'm going to try to avoid that this year, right? I'm going to try to keep an open mind and look at things differently. Jason is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about this. Cap, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good. Hey, can you hear me all right, Jason?
Yeah, it's a little mumbled, but I can understand you.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Well, let me ask you first of all, how is your season getting started? This weather's been ridiculous, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I haven't seen wind like this in a lot of years. We get a few blow days here and there. We understand it, but these northeast winds are keeping all us at dock. This is like the 5th day in a row where we haven't had a boat launch here at the Marina because of northeast and whitecaps in the channel. So it's very difficult to run a business when you can't launch the boat. So
when you can get out, how has the fishing been?
The fishing's good. I mean, it's very good. Lots of catches, lots of numbers, lots of those eater-sized fish everybody enjoys. The 15 to 22 inches are very plentiful. I had several trips in the last couple of weeks where we were actually done early. We never got the full 5 hours of trip in, had our limits, and got back. It makes it nice. So you get back and have some customers, and you can go take a nap, do other things, relax for your afternoon trips, whatever it takes to make it a nice day for sure on the water.
Jason, I don't think I've ever seen you relax. You're one of the hardest working guys I know, because if you're not working on Send It charters, you're working there at Linwood Beach Marina.
Absolutely. It's very hard for me to take a break here. This is go time for us. It's the middle of May, getting ready for holiday weekend, so we have boat installs, boat service. We're launching boats, fixing boats, and getting everybody for the holiday weekend. It's a lot of work here for sure.
Well, as I look at the forecast for this weekend, it looks like maybe we're going to start to get a little bit of a break, and then next week is looking better too. So maybe finally, Mother Nature is going to cooperate.
I sure hope so. It's sitting here working on boats is, we get that little trigger finger, like, you want to shoot something, a deer, or along that lines. We got the same thing about catching a fish. You got to have that pole pull back and catch a fish and get some anxiety going here.
So let's talk about, first of all, getting into a rut. The techniques, the tactics you are using these days didn't happen because you allowed yourself to get into a rut, but I think a lot of fishermen do, don't they, Jason?
Absolutely. We have customers come in here all the time. It's a daily basis. They come in here, and I don't care if it's spring, summer, or fall. Some guys, all they want to run is night crawlers, and that's fine. There's days you can get out there and do that, but keep in mind, a night crawler bite is typically, with spinners, is typically a warmer weather bite, not when the ice comes off. So there's things in the past. It's one of the things also is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if it's not catching your fish or not producing, maybe there's some other way we can catch these fish and make it a little easier on you and have a more enjoyable day and catching 1 or 2 fish, and then watching the guys at the cleaning station with buckets full. There's a lot of things we can do to help get that and spread the curve out for everybody else to enjoy a better day on the water.
So what are some of the things that you incorporate in your day-to-day attack on that bay that are different than the way you started, or maybe different than the traditional way of thinking?
Well, keep in mind, a lot of things here is the bait size changes. When the ice goes out, big baits, slow speeds. I have a presentation I put together, all my seminars I do. It's, when that water is 32 to 45 degrees, it's a big bait. Big bandits, big PWC crankbaits, P10s, big Rapalas, husky jerks, stuff like that, and go real slow, 1 to 1.5 miles per hour. And that's just how I get started. Once that water warms up, the bait fish get smaller. So now we're going to go with a number 9 flicker minnow, a B-shad bandit, things like that, or number 10 Rapala with 2 hooks in it instead of 3. And we'll go 1.5 to 2 miles an hour. You get that, a little more action, a little warmer. It's kind of like it's like taking a shower. If you get in a shower and the water's too hot, you get out. If the water's too cold, you get out. Well, these fish do the same thing. They want to be more active. They want to move around. They want to be with the water column and being lethargic. You're sitting on the couch in wintertime, we're not doing much. We don't eat a whole lot. We eat a big meal. We eat Thanksgiving dinner. We eat Christmas dinner. Things like that. We eat a big meal and kind of relax the rest of the day. Well, these fish do the same thing. As the summer gets closer, the water warms up, and these fish are more active. They're just like us going to sports. We got sporting events. We got ball games. We got soccer games. We're out doing a lot of things and a lot more daylight hours as well. So now these fish are actually moving faster. The bait's getting smaller, and they chase more. They're eating more little baits than big baits. So as the water gets warm in the summertime, we're running number 7s, number 5 flicker shads, little minnows, little baits to get the action faster. We're going 2.5 miles an hour at some point in time. Spoons, when that water hits 60 degrees, spoons come into a big play. You also get the fly hatches. Right now we had a big little midge hatch here last week, and those fish are way high in the water column. So we're 5 to 6 foot down in 20 foot of water because the fly hatch is way up high, and that's where the bait fish are, and that's where the walleyes want to be. So you want to fish in the top 10 foot of water some days and just catch those fish on small little baits because that's what's chasing the fly hatch.
You said something that is obvious to you, but it might not be to others. So help me figure this out here. You said when the water warms up, the bait gets smaller. Why does the bait get smaller? I mean, the bait fish are still bait fish, right?
They are. But what happens is the smaller bait fish, the minnows, your perch, your 3-inch perch, that becomes a prey of choice. and because they also have the spawn happening. You have the bass spawning, you have the walleye spawning, you have the perch spawning. So all the bait fish that were out in the area with that cooler water, they might have left the area, but now they're actually on native forage. Your perch, your little white bass, your white perch, things like that. It turns into their food of choice versus the minnows that might have left the area because the water got warm up on them.
Gotcha. I understand. All right, so, and you have actually taken it beyond just the trolling. You're doing, in certain conditions, you're actually jigging and casting for fish, aren't you?
Absolutely. I have live scope and Panoptics both on my boat. And it's a great asset as far as chasing fish. Somebody wants to do something different. I get customers all the time, I don't like trolling it. It's boring and that. Well, when you got 4 or 5 fish under a time, it's really not boring. It's actually work. It's quick. But once in a while, a customer will say, I want to do a casting trip. I want to do live scope. I'm thinking about buying live scope, and I want to be able to, try it out before I buy it. And they'll book a trip with me. We'll go out and cast for them. There's lots of baits in the market now that are designed for that. The thing about the walleye is a little bit different than a bass is the walleye are always moving. So if you're chasing fish in open water, the boat's always moving anyway. So you're not trolling for them, you're still casting, but the boat was always in motion. It's hard to spot lock on them or hold still or anchor on them to cast at them because those walleye are always swimming around, chasing the bait, chasing the food. But a bass, on the other hand, will hold to a rock pile, hold to a shell for a weed bed, stuff like that. You can actually anchor the boat sometimes and cast until you catch that fish. But the walleye casting has also become a great asset as far as learning how the fish work as well. Watching them on live scope, watching them how they react to a bait, watch how they miss it 3 or 4 times but they actually eat it. Things like that you can actually see on a live scope screen now.
You mentioned live scope and Panoptics. What's the difference, Jason?
So live scope is a live feed, high definition screen, watching the fish in motion. Panoptics actually was come out first. Panoptics is a 3D view. It has the same aspects of live scope, but it doesn't quite have the power generation, the pixels on a screen to see everything. A lot of boats are now putting Panoptics on the back of the boat for trolling. A lot of salmon guys are doing that now. You can actually watch a 3D model of the fish. You can see your downer, your balls. You can see your divers on both sides, depending on how the transducer is set up on the boat, and watch those live feed of the depth of those lures. The other thing about live scope is it's got a smaller cone angle. It's a 120 by 20 cone angle, so it actually pointing right at the area you want to look at. That's why most guys put them on the trolling motor or put them on a separate stick. Where a Panoptics transducer is a rigid mount, just like a transom type transfer mount for a fisher.
Are the prices coming down on those units yet?
They're starting to, but the reason they're starting to is because they advance the technology so fast. Keep in mind this live scope that's currently now is probably already being get ready to go bye-bye and change into the new one. Mm-hmm. That's once you have it on the market, you get a couple 3 years, and it's also now it's going to be discontinued and go on to the next model. I have not seen the next update yet, but I'm imagining that there's the new one that's going to come out in the near future will be even better than what's available now.
You mentioned transducer placement. I know that you're an expert. In my opinion, you're an expert at rigging boats. Boy, transducer placement and placement on the hull and the positioning of a transducer is critical, isn't it?
Very critical, yes. A lot of boats out there now, when you buy them from the big box stores or places that don't have a way to put boats on the water and test them out, put the transducer, they think it's correct. It's actually a fine. You need water to make sure the transducer is in the right spot. Getting on plane and watching the depth is very critical on these transducers as far as how the water depths and the speed of it. If you start to get on plane and at 10, 20 miles an hour, all of a sudden you lose bottom. One thing is you can't tell where depth is. So if you're going across the flat, you have no idea how deep it is. So that means your transducer is too high out of it. You're getting some bubbles. You're getting some effects of the ribs or the welds on the bottom of the boat or where it's not set high enough. And you're actually getting air bubbles in it, and the transducer pretty much shuts off. It can't read bottom. You have to have the depth of that right.
You mentioned
but
water.
The other part of this, once you get that set right, what's that?
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. Keep in mind, so you have some safety issues. If you're running on Saginaw Bay, there's lots of shallow flats. So you want to be able to read depth no matter what speed you're at with your boat. The next critical thing is reading fish. So days like today, we got a west wind or east wind right now, 40 miles an hour, whitecaps everywhere. These fish are going to move between the next time I go out fishing and today.
Hang tight, Jason. I do have to cut you off now. Got to take a break. We're talking with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters out of Linwood Beach Marina. Send It Charters is senditcharters.com, and Linwood Beach Marina is linwoodbeachmarina.com. Sorry to cut you off, Jason, but I'm out of time for this segment. But we will come back. We'll answer those questions about marking fish at speed, also the water depth on Saginaw Bay. What is the low water doing? And then I want to talk to him about, braid and mono and all this other stuff that he's he's really, really good at. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge. Let's go to Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, and believe me, it is a destination right now. With the Memorial Weekend here, hopefully the weather's going to turn around. Linwood Beach Marina is a beautiful facility. The launch ramps are outstanding. The campground is beautiful. They have a complete ship store, a marine store, marine shop, boating shop. I mean, these guys can take care of your every need, and I strongly recommend them. Again, the website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Right now, I'm talking with a captain who works out of Linwood Beach Marina. His name is Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com. Cap, a couple of things just to follow up on from our first conversation. The water depth on Saginaw Bay, first of all, how low is it compared to last year, and what is the impact of that?
From last year, we're probably 6-8 inches, give or take, low. We do have a trend as it's actually going up. If you look at the Army Corps of Engineers webpage, we have a trend of actually gaining some water to get back to last year's levels. So it shouldn't be terrible come summer, but I have not seen August, September forecast yet.
Okay. And plenty of water in there in your channel at Linwood Beach?
Yeah, we're 4 or 5 foot. We have some big vessels that draft, 3 feet of water. They're getting in and out all okay. Keep in mind, if we have a hard west wind, it will suck some of the water off this side and make it shallower. Today, we're actually got a hard east wind, so we're probably gained a foot. But nobody can leave because it's still got whitecaps in the channel today. So. And
you mentioned the ability to mark fish at speed while you're running up on plane. That's a big deal, right?
It is. It's a huge deal, especially when you have days like this when we can't get out. Those fish will be scattered for my next trip. I will actually have the transducer. I'll probably run 20, 25 miles per hour and actually be able to read fish at speed. Keep in mind, it will not look like an arc. The faster you go, the more the arc, it shallows up. So it's actually just going to be a straight line at 15 to 25 miles per hour, just a straight line up and down. Kind of looks like interference on your graph, but if there's any color to it on the new color screens, it's actually a fish above the bottom somewhere, and you actually mark that fish at speed at his natural depth.
Once you find those fish, how are you approaching them? How are you attacking them? Because you use a unique, you're using, braided line? You're using steel instead of copper? Tell me about this.
Yeah, so I run into it's called torpedo weighted steel. It's a hybrid of copper or lead core, and it's actually 100-pound strength is what it is. And for a lot of years, it's designed to put a small bait deeper in the waters like copper or lead core does. A couple nice features of it is it's a shorter distance. So, for example, on Saginaw Bay, we run a 60 foot of weighted steel versus 90 feet or 3-color lead core. A couple things happen is one is you have less line in the water. Less line in the water behind the board means less tangles. It's also faster to deploy, faster to reel in for customers or anybody in the avid angler that fishes on a daily basis. It also doesn't want to tangle. It wants to stay straight. I have when I do my seminars and the fishing shows, I have a 300 weighted steel that I will actually pull off that reel and try to backlash it, and it won't backlash on the spool, and I put it all on the floor and the reel right back up. You would never do that with copper or lead core without kinking it or cutting it off and have to start over. But it's a great feature as far as trying to get small baits. Typically in the summertime here, we were talking earlier about that 55, 60 and warmer degree water. We throw small baits. We have a number 5 flicker shad, a number 7 flicker shad, spoons, things like that, trying to get those small baits down in the water column 15 to 20 foot, and weighted steel does that for me without putting 300 feet of line behind the boat.
Yeah, lead core is just a pain. That stuff will kink up, and it's just so hard to deal with. So when you were telling me about this, what is it called, weighted steel?
Weighted steel, torpedo weighted steel. It's a great product. One thing back in the day when I was running it, you had to crimp it. There's hard ways to tie a knot to it to make it actually like do a Willis knot on a piece of lead core. We do the haywire twist on copper. It's real soft and supple to work with. But when you put a crimp on a piece of weighted steel, it's hard to go through the rods and the guides, the level wind on reels. I run Shimano Dakotas, and the level wind is so small that I couldn't get that crimp through it. So I developed a knot It's a finger cuff knot, like a Chinese finger cuff knot that I tie on my end of my weighted steel, so it deploys easy, comes down to the guides easy, and you don't even know it goes through the guides when you're reeling it in. The thing about this is it's something you want to tie at the dock. You want to tie it home. You don't want to tie it on a boat, but the steel itself won't fail on the boat. So
I hope you have named this the Jason Graham knot.
Well, Torpedo and I have been, we're working a long time on this. We're trying to get it developed so it's actually in a package ready to buy with a customer. That's what we're trying to develop right now. And actually you can buy it off the shelf with this tag on both ends, so it's easier to spool up on your reels and not have to have the jig and the tools that I use to tie this knot.
You better have the name Jason Graham on there somewhere, Cap.
I'm working on it. I'm definitely working on it.
All right, Jason, listen, always a pleasure. Let's hope Mother Nature cooperates. The winds die. You can get out there on the bay. Hopefully I can get out there soon, and we will be in touch. I would encourage people to go to your website, senditcharters.com, and also check out linwoodbeachmarina.com. Jason, you're one of the good guys. You're one of the best out there, and I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters on Saginaw Bay, senditcharters.com. He works out of the Linwood Beach Marina. Beautiful facility. Been partners with Linwood Beach for a long, long time. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Dan Cooke of the Michigan Wildlife Council with an update on their Here for Generations campaign. That website, hereformioutdoors.org. That group has recently changed their marketing company. I'm curious how that will change the direction of the campaign, but regardless, I am behind them because they are promoting the role of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping here in our great state, and they want to get the word out. I think that is a very positive and worthwhile goal. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM, and north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. It was so cold on my last turkey hunt with my grandson Trent that I was wearing my big, heavy VersaSkins jacket. Now, hopefully, we won't have to worry about that much longer, but I am a big fan of Michigan-based family-owned VersaSkins. Company owner Paul Perone has this very cool concept of changing the outer shell, different camo pattern by snapping on and zipping on an outer shell in less than a minute. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com, or go to amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins brand. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Right now, looking forward to a conversation with Dan Cooke. Dan is a member of the Michigan Wildlife Council. I am strongly behind the Michigan Wildlife Council because their charge is to promote the role of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping here in our great state of Michigan, and I think they're doing a great job. Dan, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Good to be here. I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I am wonderful. Now, here in the studio, it's kind of a rainy, rotten, crappy day. The weather for the weekend looks a little bit better. But let's talk about Michigan Wildlife Council. You've been a member for a while now. How is the battle going?
The battle is actually going extremely well in the state of Michigan. We are one of the few states that public opinions on hunting, angling, fishing, and other, conservation, recreational outlets is actually improving as a whole. That is not a battle that's being won in other states, but in Michigan, we're actually seen as the really the poster child of promoting conservation well into the 2020s. So, as a whole, all metrics show that it's going really well.
The campaign started out a very soft sell, a very low-key campaign. My sense is, Dan, and I might be wrong, but my sense is you're getting ready to change the direction a little bit, kick this into a higher gear. You got a different marketing company you're dealing with. Are we going to see changes in this message?
Yes and no. Yeah, you're going to see continuity of the same general message that has been resonating with Michiganders now for over a decade, which is that, hunting and fishing, especially the sale of hunting and fishing licenses, is one of the best way to promote conservation in our state, other than actually, getting in the field or getting out on the river. So that part of our messaging is going to stay the same, as we are going to be working with a new marketing partner. What's going to change, though, is the new message as a whole that we're really going to be trying to dial into, which is beyond just the financial aspect, that there's a greater cultural and heritage component to, getting outside, participating in time-honored traditions like hunting and fishing, not only for Michigan's legacy community of hunters and anglers, but also for the next generations, especially in Southeast Michigan, that are looking to get into the field for the first time.
No, I think that's so exciting, and again, I support what you're doing so very much. I've got just a couple of minutes left here. Let's switch directions a little bit here and talk about your company, because you're trying to promote Detroit, get people outdoors in Detroit. I was in the Motor City last weekend. I was down there for the I Run the D race. My wife Denise ran it with my daughter Shelby, and my 7-month-old grandson Bodie was in a stroller. They had 3 generations, but after the race, we wandered around town a little bit, and that city is such a remarkable story. It is so much fun to be down there now.
Oh, absolutely. No, I absolutely love the city of Detroit and the progression that it's had really since coming out of the bankruptcy in 2013. And what I'm most proud of the city, other than all of the dynamic socioeconomic improvements, is that as part of its redevelopment strategy, it's really emphasized outdoor recreation. And the poster child of that is the DNR Outdoor Adventure Center. While you were running the race, I was actually at the Partner Expo promoting Expedition Detroit and the work that we've done in the region to promote outdoor recreation and just, the value of living an outdoor lifestyle. And what was cool was walking around the Outdoor Adventure Center. If you go up to the second floor, there is a massive exhibit about the value of hunting and fishing in Michigan, which for me, as both the founder and CEO of Expedition Detroit and a member of the Michigan Wildlife Council, that was very energizing to see all of these, especially, young kids and young families from Metro Detroit, getting that exposure to the outdoors and specifically getting such a positive image of the impact of hunting and fishing. It's really awesome to see that right on the riverfront, right in the heart of downtown. The city is heading in the right direction on multiple fronts, especially on outdoor recreation.
Well, Dan Cooke of the Michigan Wildlife Council, I love that message. I love to see that progress is being made. Keep up the good work. We'll talk again soon. The group is the Michigan Wildlife Council. Their website is hereformioutdoors.org, hereformioutdoors.org. And the website is Here for Generations. I think it's a great group. I'm proud to be in support of them, and we will talk again soon. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour, John Durtka, the guy who single-handedly changed the way we look at spearfishing in Michigan, plus Steve Windom of MUCC.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for reading that list of advertising partners. I am blessed to have so many great companies that I'm working with, and I am also very blessed to be able to be at this microphone every week talking about the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. And I do believe that if you can, the best way to listen to this show is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM radio station, more than 30 of them across the great state of Michigan. You know, there you get your local news, your local weather, your local sports, and even your local ads, your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale or something you want to take advantage of. Plus, the broadcast stations get the content of the show before I put the podcast version out there. Yes, there is a podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Everybody has a podcast. I mean, everybody has a podcast. And so do I. I put the podcast version of the radio show out there just to make it more convenient for you if you can't listen to the broadcast version. You can hear the podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's also on my Facebook page and on just about all of the podcast outlets out there, including Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, now called X, Google Play, iHeart, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, yada, yada, yada. I even put it on YouTube. I do like podcasting, though. Sometimes I don't mean to poo-poo it because my main gig is radio, but podcasting has been extraordinarily successful for a lot of people. But I do podcast each month for some of my my advertising partners as well, including Offshore Tackle, Killer Food Plots, and Angler Quest pontoons. In fact, when we're done today recording this week's radio show, I will record this month's Angler Quest podcast as well. So keep an ear out for that. When I was teasing this hour, in the first hour, I said I'm going to talk with the guy who single-handedly changed the way we look at spearfishing in Michigan. And I believe that. John Durtka is a guy who had an idea, and he was willing to work towards it, and he was able to work in the system. He got the DNR behind him. He got the legislature behind him. And there is now a spearfishing season in Michigan, I think, because of John Durtka. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. John, welcome back. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me back, Mike. Always a privilege.
Well, the privilege is mine because, as I've told you before, I have much respect for you because you did spearhead this thing and you pushed for it and you got it to become a reality that's got to be very rewarding for you.
It is, and having men like you in the industry recognize that is it's a great honor, and I just want to say thank you for that. And we're pushing forward. We're going to continue to keep spearheading this regulation, and hopefully here in the next couple of years we'll have even better regulations on the book as a result.
Well, let's talk about, and it sounds like a joke, underwater spearfishing, but it's not a joke. I mean, this is a hardcore activity. It is for people who take this very seriously. You have some pretty strong regulations, and it's not for the casual weekend warrior. You guys are pretty much, you're athletes, actually. I look at you like athletes, John.
I would have to 100% agree. Diving beneath the surface of the water is no joke, and depending on how good and how comfortable you are in the water, you can dive 50, 60, or even up to 100 plus feet on a single breath, and you're fighting the waves, you're fighting the temperatures, and all those things are things you have to prepare for, and your body has to be able to handle in order to do it.
The key phrase from you I just heard was a single breath. You don't have tanks.
Correct, yeah. Underwater spearfishing is prohibited when using artificial breathing apparatuses or devices such as scuba or like a hookah machine that pumps fresh oxygen down to you via a tube. Those are prohibited when underwater spearfishing.
Is that one of the things you want to change, John? Do you want to expand this to the use of tanks?
At this time, no. I don't think we have a sufficient amount of data to support expansion of underwater spearfishing using scuba at this time, but I have heard from members of Michigan United Conservation Clubs at the convention back in March that there may be some form of an exception or a request for an exception for, say, people who have disabilities or have physical limitations, and that will be up to the Natural Resource Commission to decide, not me.
It's an interesting journey you have been on. I mean, you are so good at promoting this. You're so good at social media. The stuff you put out there online, I'm not going to do this, right? I'm an old guy who has never done this, and I'm not going to learn it at this point. But to watch your videos of you and your buddies going down and chasing fish, the videos are fascinating.
It's just as fun as it is fascinating. I tell you what, you got to learn these fish, their habitats, their migration routes. Just because you get in the water doesn't mean you're going to find them. So you have to apply all the same techniques and kind of pattern recognition for different species of fish. Like right now, the water temperatures are warming throughout the east side and southern Lake Huron. So those walleye are pushing back up the thumb, so you can start to catch them moving up through Lexington and Port Salonac, maybe up to Port Austin. And so you kind of got to recognize that. And then at certain temperature ranges, they'll push in shallower where they're more targetable. So you have to pay attention, and that's all part of it. Just being in the water doesn't equal success.
Well, see, that's interesting because the naysayers who have been against this from the beginning said, well, these guys are going to go out there with these spear guns and they're going to decimate our population. They're going to hurt our walleye. They're going to hurt our lake trout or whatever. Well, I think it's proven at this point, because there are very good statistics on this, that you guys don't take nearly the number of fish that the hook and line anglers do.
Correct. Through the regulation that was implemented back in 2021, all underwater spearfishing activity was required to be reported on a monthly basis by anybody who got the underwater spearfishing license. And over the last 3 years, the Fisheries Division has compiled that data and put it together. And through the working group that we're working with right now with the Fisheries Division, they concluded in the 3-year trial period where this data was collected that less than 1,000 walleye were harvested in that 3 years by underwater spearfishing activity.
Yeah, that's not even a drop in the bucket.
I would say so. And they compared that to creel estimates for Lake Huron. I believe it was through that St. Clair Detroit River system, and they estimate over 250,000 walleye are harvested annually by hook and line anglers. So I don't think there's going to be any significant increase in harvest in the walleye population as it currently exists because of underwater spearfishing.
And when I look at what you guys have to go through to get those fish, I mean, you are literally, genuinely working for these fish, as opposed to a guy like me who sits out there in the Angler Quest, throws out a bunch of boards, and just has a good time. You guys are working at it.
Yeah, I like to think so. I don't begrudge you at all for what you do, I just think for the amount of effort that we put in, the fish that we should be able to target should be the fish that we want to take home and eat, because before this regulation was passed, a lot of this effort was targeted towards rough fish, or fish that generally aren't eaten, taken home and eaten, like carp and bowfin and drum and a variety of different fish. But to put in that level of effort and just kill a fish and dispose of it, that's not a very sportsmanlike thing to do. That's not a very ethical thing to do. And so that was part of what I was always advocating for, is like we shouldn't have a method to take where we promote it for killing and disposing of fish instead of killing and utilizing and consuming the fish. And that's really what this is all about, is the amount of effort we put in, we should be able to put in and get a fish that's worth taking home and putting on the table and enjoying at the end of the day.
But the way you guys kind of eased into this to make it work was you started with the rough fish, right? Okay, we're going to target rough fish. Nobody will get too mad about that. And then you moved into the walleye, and then you moved into the lake trout.
Yep. And we're gonna keep moving forward. We were just in Lake Huron, northern Lake Huron, up by Thunder Bay, which is the northernmost point where you can target those. And we were actually diving in 39 to 41 degree water temperatures, 55 feet down, to try and get these lake trout. And so that's a pretty tall task to ask. And I think that it shows through that data. Same thing. I think less than 20 lake trout in those 3 years were harvested with underwater spearfishing equipment. In the same time frame where tens of thousands of these fish are harvested with hook and line. So I don't see where those numbers are going to inflate in any significant direction, and especially if we open up more waters and more species, I think that you'll diversify harvest, and I think you'll overall see a good sportsman kind of perspective come out of it, targeting the fish you want to eat, and in the areas you want to eat them, or the areas you are close to home, the areas that you know well. And I think that's really going to I think it's really going to open it up. I think a lot more people are going to be like, hey, I don't have to drive 3 hours. You know, if you're in Traverse Bay on Lake Michigan side, the boundaries are a little more south, and, you know, that might be tough for you. And I think that's one thing to say about the boundaries currently are.
Hang tight, John. Hang tight, John. We'll follow up on this after the break. We're talking with John Durtka. You can find him online, PurelyMiSpearfishing, especially on Instagram, PurelyMiSpearfishing. Just do a Google search for him. He is the guy who has changed the way that the powers in Lansing look at spearfishing, and he is the guy who is doing more, in my opinion, than anybody else in this state to promote the sport of spearfishing in general. So we'll talk more with John after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT, 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine, well, all I have to do is this, right? You know what that sound is by now. I just took my Rapid River knife out of my pocket, and that is the sound of the blade locking back open. So many exciting things at Rapid River. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. If you go to that website and use the promo code Avery15, that's Avery15, you can get 15% off your entire order, or better yet, go to their showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. See what they have to offer. Watch them make a knife. Watch them engrave your name on a knife. And you can use the same promo code. Also, I talked with Chris Durson of Rapid River just yesterday. We are getting very close to finalizing the first knife in the Mike Avery Outdoors Signature Series. This will be a custom knife. We're working with Chris on what it'll look like. It'll be a Uper pocket clip knife, and a significant percent of the proceeds will go towards a veterans group, a group designed to get veterans and first responders in the outdoors. I don't want to say the name of that group yet because this whole thing hasn't been finalized, but that's where we're at. I'm very, very excited about this project. I will let you know when those knives become available. Right now, though, talking with John Durtka, the guy who has done more to promote the sport of spearfishing, underwater spearfishing in Michigan than anybody. John, before the break, you said there are certain things you want to continue to increase, and that is the species targeted and the waters in which you can do so, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so currently the underwater spearfishing regulations are limited on the Great Lakes to Grand Haven and south on Lake Michigan, and then south of the Thunder Bay River in Lake Huron, all the way down to the Fort Gratiot Lighthouse. And hopefully, with the help of the DNR and the support of the NRC, we can, and support of MUCC as well, we can expand those waters to all the Great Lakes. Just like you can as a hook and line angler, you can go anywhere on the Great Lakes and target the fish you would like, as long as they're within season. And we think that would be a great opportunity for the spearfishing community as well.
Yeah, people need to realize that you still have to deal with seasons. You still have to deal with creel limits. You still have to deal with size limits, which, by the way, has got to be an interesting situation because you cannot catch and release when you're spearfishing. When you let a spear go and you hit a fish, you're pretty much catching them. So you got to be careful, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to know what the fish are, what you're targeting them, and the conditions need to be right. And, you have to have familiarity with the fish species you're targeting to know what physical aspects to look for to when you're, sizing them up, so to speak. And that takes a little bit of skill and a little bit of knowledge. And as we've always said in the community, if you don't know, let it go. That's the catch and release part for us. As we look at that fish, it comes close, and we say, man, it's too close for comfort. Just let it go. And that fish goes away untouched and unharmed. And you keep swimming until you find the next one.
I followed your adventures you were talking about earlier to northern Lake Huron for your lake trout fishing. You had some success, but, man, that's a pretty hardcore venture, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, most of the diving was 35, 40 feet. And then we had a couple dives out in the 50 to 55 foot range, and the water was absolutely frigid. When you're jumping into water 39 to 40 degrees, it's brutal. But I tell you what, that water up there is, we were, like I said, in 50 feet of water. We could see the bottom. We could see the fish on the bottom. It was that clear. And that's the only reason we were able to be successful, because most of those fish didn't want us getting anywhere near them. So having that clear water, at least finding lots of fish, helped us find the ones that had the right temperament. That allowed us to get within that 20-foot range to throw a spear at them and hopefully get them.
See, that's what I was wondering. When you've got crystal clear water, how do you sneak up on a fish? Because they're going to see you coming.
Yeah, there's no sneaking up on them. They see you and they react, and it's all about your temperament when you're coming down. Because if you come at them in an aggressive manner and you're kicking hard and you're coming at them like a predator would, they run. They say, absolutely not, I'm out of here. But if you come down on a slow, kind of don't pay any attention to them, they get a little bit more curious, and then they'll maybe get a little bit closer, and then that's when you can use your hands or any kind of lure or some kind of a device that might get their attention, just like a flash, or just like a crankbait or anything that makes noise or flashes or right color. Those things help attract them. So if you come down calm, smooth, and you try and get their attention in a non-threatening manner, they might let you get close.
I've seen video of you guys doing this, where you get close and you hold your hand up and you move your fingers, and I didn't know what that was, but now it makes sense. It's almost like an attractant.
Exactly. You got to do something, or else they just won't let you close that gap, especially in the clean water like we were diving. So anything that gives you an advantage to allow you to get an opportunity is what we'll use if we can.
How close do you have to get to let a spear go efficiently, effectively?
Yeah, so the best spear guns, I was using a 55-inch spear gun by a guy from Florida. It's called a fish stick spear gun. And with two bands, that thing's about effective range is about 18 to 20 feet at its absolute maximum. So that's in clear as day water, 50-foot clarity. We were shooting at max 18 to 20 feet.
And how, I'm equating this to bow hunting. If you make a shot that's too long, the animal's going to move before the arrow gets there. Do you see the same thing with spears underwater?
Absolutely. The spear slows significantly when it starts to pass like that 15-foot range. So just like a deer might duck an arrow, same thing with a fish. If he sees you react with that gun go off or anything changes, he doesn't like it, a flick of his tail, and he's 5-10 feet away further than he was. So yes, 100% fish can dodge a spear just like a deer can dodge an arrow.
I just find it so fascinating, though. Again, when I'm up on top of the surface and I'm trying to envision what the fish are doing, how they're reacting to my baits, and it's one situation, which I dearly love. But to be down there in their environment, literally eye to eye, and seeing how they react to what's going on, it's such a unique experience. I can't relate to it, but again, I look at your videos and your photos, and it helps me. It's just so cool, John.
It's one of the coolest things, and that's why I love doing it. It's a specific time of year. It's not like a year-round thing. You got to wait until the water gets a certain temp, and the conditions have to be right. You have to have the right clarity to feel comfortable in the water. But when you're down there and the fish they're hiding in the weeds, or they're chasing bait fish, or they're just schooling up on a rocky point, or there's some current somewhere, and they just all want to be there. It's just, there's nothing better than being able to swim down and actually interact with them in the wild. And it's just like going to Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops, and you get to see them in an aquarium, and you get real close, and wow, that's super cool. But it's in the wild, it's in the Great Lakes, and that's really what makes the lakes great, is to be able to go out there and enjoy them to the fullest, just like that, and that's why I love it.
How do you train to be able to do this?
You got to be able to hold your breath. So anything that involves cardiovascular health is good, whether that's riding a bike or walking or running. That's going to be a great help just to make sure that you are your heart is healthy and it isn't going to work too hard and exacerbate yourself. You can always practice holding your breath, get in the pool. I always recommend getting in the pool and doing some swimming. Just being comfortable in the water, floating around, that's always going to help you. But anything that if there's anything that does help the most, it's just doing it. Just like anything, get out there and be comfortable. In the off season, do what you can to keep yourself healthy. But in the meantime, once the season starts, get in the water and just start getting out there and working on things that you're not great at until you get better at them. And this isn't going to be something you're going to do overnight. This is going to be something you're going to work on year after year after year until you get good at what the aspects of the game that you're short in.
Well, and because of that, because there's so much work involved, there's so much preparation, it's not a sport for old fat people, okay? So I never worry that you guys, and I'd like to think I wouldn't come at it from this perspective anyway. I'm not from a selfish perspective. But I would never worry that you guys as underwater spear fishermen are going to negatively impact what the trollers and the surface anglers do, because your numbers are never going to be that big. You have to work so hard for your fish. You're never going to statistically take enough fish out of a resource to hurt it. So let you guys do what you want. That's the way I look at it. As long as you're legal, right? As long as you do it within the guidelines of what they've established, why not?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think as a mentor, as a leader in the sport, I'm going to continue to watch it, and anywhere I see any bad habits or any bad interactions where I believe we can create better regulations for everybody, because we don't want anybody in the community to conflict with anybody who already has opportunities. So I'll be sure to watch it, but I think you hit the nail right on the head there. Just as long as we're able to do what we say we do, and the numbers don't get too high where there's hundreds of thousands of people getting in the water every day, I don't think we're going to ever have that. But I think as long as we just keep an eye on it, just like anything, we'll be able to fit in the Great Lakes no problem.
And I can't see you guys going out there in the middle of, say, a Saginaw Bay or Lake Erie and putting out a dive buoy in the middle of the trollers. You don't want that kind of interaction anyway.
Absolutely not. And it's just like crossing a road, or, I don't want to be where the traffic is. That's the worst case scenario for us. We're in the water. We're the ones in danger of being snagged by copper or steel line and big spoons and things like that, or whatever you're running out there. So I think it's just like anything. Self-preservation is always going to be the first thing. And I'm not going to jump in the water and say, oh, you guys are in my way. And it's pretty basic, I think. But like I said, worst case scenario, somebody is being stupid and they do something like that. And when we got to figure out a way to, police ourselves and work as a community. Yeah. I think a lot of fisherman etiquette kind of comes into play there. But, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but we have to just keep an eye on them and do the best we can.
John Durtka, you have done a wonderful job in promoting underwater spearfishing and getting it to be accepted by the powers that be in Lansing. I have much respect for you. I follow you on Instagram, PurelyMiSpearfishing. You've done a wonderful job, and again, keep it up.
Thank you very much, Mike.
John Durtka, Michigan's spearfishing expert. And really, there are certain people that I credit with doing key things over the years that I've worked with, and John Durtka is certainly one of those. Check him out online, especially on Instagram, PurelyMiSpearfishing. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll talk with Steve Windom of MUCC about what's going on there. We'll probably talk about a push for membership, and of course, we'll talk about the big second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing coming up in July to benefit MUCC's youth camp. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including 98.5 WUPS in Houghton Lake, in Ludington, News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDM, and north of the bridge in Manistee, WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Hammond Drives and Equipment. Are you a farmer, a contractor, a landscaper, maintenance supervisor, anyone who needs hydraulic hoses? Hammond Drives can help you out with more than 30 years in business. They have a warehouse full of hoses, fittings, elbows, adapters, and more. Check them out online at HammondEQP.com, HammondEQP.com, or give them a call at 989-695-2239, 989-695-2239. Earlier in the show, I was talking with Dan Cooke of the Michigan Wildlife Council. That's a group I am very much in support of because they are working to promote the role of hunters and anglers in Michigan. Another group that I am strongly in support and alliance with is MUCC, the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Their goals are to preserve, protect, and defend hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers in Michigan. How can I not be behind that? And that's why I've chosen to partner with MUCC. Steve Windom is a crucial guy in the hierarchy at MUCC, although they're all crucial, I got to tell you that. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Steve, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Always a pleasure to check in. We haven't talked in a while. What have you been up to?
Oh, we have been busy. We wrapped up our convention, which you were at, and received an award and spoke. We've been getting ready for all of our upcoming events. We've had one event so far, and camp season's about to kick off here in June as well.
Let's talk about the MUCC Youth Camp. What's the reason for it? It's an expense. It is a drain on your resources, yet you guys continue to do it every year.
It is one of the most crucial elements of MUCC. Education is one of our biggest pillars, and we are there to help young people start or enhance their outdoor heritage and teach them all kinds of great outdoor skills out in Chelsea, Michigan.
Who are these kids? Are they kids who are grown up in families that are already in part of the outdoor lifestyle? Are they inner city kids? Who are they?
We have them all, Mike. We have everywhere from ages 6 to 16. We have day camp for our younger campers, overnight away camp for our older students. We have students that have never heard crickets or seen stars before, and we've had students who shot their first deer at 7 or 8 years old. So everyone is welcome at the MUCC Youth Camp. When
you tell me these stories about kids who have never heard crickets or seen stars, that really gets my attention. That just blows me away that's the case these days.
It is. For some of us, it may seem odd, but, we have a great scholarship program as well for certain students that don't have that outdoor lifestyle already ingrained in their family, and they want to explore and engage in that opportunity.
How does this work? I mean, how does somebody get involved in this, and how do they pay for it and all the good things like that?
Yeah, at MUCC.org is a drop-down that says education. You can click on the youth camp there. All of the scholarship information, all of our registration processes, everything is there. We have full, complete scholarships. We have partial scholarships. We're actually even doing a little teaser camp for people who have never been away at camp yet, for young people to come and try it out for a few days over the 4th of July week. Right after the 4th of July, we have a mini camp that'll be there to allow students who aren't sure that they want to go away for a full week away from mom and dad, but they want to give it a try for a few nights.
There's got to be some expense involved in just maintaining the facilities, too.
Yeah, we are actually located in the Waterloo State Rec area in Chelsea, Michigan. We occupy the Cedar Lake Outdoor Adventure Center. It's a historic CCC camp that we actually operate, and there's everything from cabin maintenance to dock maintenance. We're actually investing in a brand new archery range this fall. We have a 22 range, lots of things that, kids have to have bathrooms. Kids have to have hot water. We have to be able to cook them meals. And so there's a lot of expense and a lot of maintenance that goes into it, but it's definitely worth it when you get 100 new hunter safety graduates. You have over 300 students a year. We're nearing 60,000 young people through the program.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, Steve, as you well know, the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing is coming up Friday, July 25th, with the proceeds to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp. And I'm really excited about this year. Our first year with a trial balloon, just a proof of concept. And I think we proved that it is indeed a good concept, and I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, last year was great. We had 108 golfers come out and join us. We raised over $10,000 net proceeds last year to go towards our youth camp. We're going to be selling out this year with 144 spots available. So sponsorships are still available. Foursomes are still available. Big shout out to Security Credit Union Foundation as our presenting sponsor this year. But there's still time to get registered and come join us on July 25th. MUCC.org/golf. And I'll be real honest with you, Steve, and I put this out there publicly. We raised $10,000 last year. This year, the goal, in my mind, is $30,000. That's going to be an awesome goal. If we hit that, we're going to have lots of great raffles that day. We're going to have lots of great supporters and lots of great, community and fellowship that's built at the event. But you're going to walk away with hopefully a crossbow or a gun or a blind or something great through our raffle program that day too.
Yeah, don't say if, Steve. Say when. Say when we hit that goal.
That's right.
There we go. All right, Steve, listen, we'll be talking a lot more about this. It is time to sign up for this. I've been talking about this for a while, just putting it on people's radar screen that, put Friday, July 25th on your calendar. Now it's time to step up and sign up at mucc.org/golf.
Awesome. Look forward to seeing you there, Mike.
All right, Steve, we'll be talking between now and then. Steve Windom of MUCC, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And if you'd like to sign up to be a part of the second annual golf outing, MUCC.org/golf. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're raising money for a great cause. It is at the West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch, Michigan, in beautiful Ogemaw County. So we'll be talking more about that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, speaking of Security Credit Union, Security Credit Union's this week's Ask Avery segment is coming up after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on WMLQ, and that's 97.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us north of the ridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And as Steve Windom was saying in the previous segment, a big thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union and their foundation for stepping up to become a title sponsor of the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing, to be held Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club in West Branch in beautiful Ogemaw County, with proceeds to benefit MUCC's youth camp. If you would like to get involved, go to the website mucc.org/golf. And if you'd like to learn more about Security Credit Union, and by the way, they're putting up new branches all across our state. I got to believe they're the fastest growing credit union in our state. Their website is securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Now, this Ask Avery segment, the way this works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question that you would like me to answer directly, or you can send me a question you want me to pass along to somebody else in MUCC or DNR, somebody maybe I have access to that you don't. The best way to get those questions to me, which is the best way to communicate with me in general, send me an email, a good old-fashioned email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Please don't send me messages or pictures or photos via social media messaging, because I may or may not see them. If you send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, I will see it. And if for some reason I do miss it, send me another one, not like the next day, but a few days later. And in the subject line, put, "Hey, stupid." And I will know right away, okay, I missed this email. I'll take a look at it. Now, I will admit that this week's Ask Avery question is, I'm not going to say dated, but I would have been far better off talking about this several weeks ago. And it is in reference to a comment that I made about turkey hunting with my grandson, Trent. And I said, if we're not successful on the ground, we're going to go into an elevated platform, because the property that I was hunting, my buddy Scott Gatz's, there was a very, very good spot there, but it was better hunted by one of his permanent elevated blinds. And somebody said, "Oh, no, you can't turkey hunt from a tree." Well, the regulations in Michigan changed recently. So let me read you some of this. This is a question, Q&A off the DNR's website regarding turkey hunting from an elevated platform. Can I use an elevated platform on public lands during the spring turkey season? The answer is no. You cannot use an elevated platform on public lands in the spring season. Can I use an elevated platform on private lands during the spring turkey season? Yes, you can use an elevated platform to hunt turkeys on private lands during the spring turkey season with the permission of the landowner. A fall arrest system is recommended. You cannot use a permanent stand on public forest lands, because you can't put tree steps, nails, screws, bolts, etc. in commercial forest lands. Just to further talk more about this, what equipment can I use to hunt a turkey? You can use a bow, a crossbow, or a firearm. And here's an interesting thing. Can I hunt a turkey while it's in a tree? Because as turkey hunters, we routinely roost birds, because you may or may not know this, turkeys sleep/roost in trees at night. They don't sleep on the ground. They sleep up in trees. They roost in trees. You cannot shoot a bird out of a tree. If you get out there real early in the morning, I mean, as the sun's coming up, technically before shooting hours, it is very easy, especially early in the season before the leaves are on the trees, to see the birds in the trees. They're silhouetted. You can see them, but you can't shoot them while they're in the tree. So keep that in mind. Now, as I'm saying all these things, I'm realizing the Michigan spring turkey season is just about over. So keep these things in mind for next year. And a real quick aside, congrats to my grandson, Trent, T-Man. He got his first bird this spring. He got it last week. He was hunting with me. We had been hunting for several days with no luck. Last week, called in a bird, got him to gobble. He hung up. He would not come in past about 75 yards. So the next time out, I said, okay, I'm going to change things up. I know how to fix this. I put out a Jake decoy out there with a hen decoy. And in my experience, later in the season, if you get a Jake decoy over a hen, a longbeard just cannot pass it up. And it worked for us. Tuesday of last week, Trent and I were out there at my buddy Scott Gatz's place. I had that decoy set up. We were out there for an hour. I had been called in a hen. She was followed by a longbeard. The longbeard saw that Jake decoy, and he ran. He literally ran into the Jake decoy. He strutted up. He did not gobble. He strutted up. He circled that decoy as he went around to the backside of the decoy. He put his head up, and I said, Trent, there's your chance. Boom. Trent, one shot, anchored the bird. He hit the ground. It was so cool. I enjoyed that hunt more probably than any other turkey hunt I've been involved in. This concept of passing down this love of the outdoors to future generations. I may or may not get a chance to talk more about it in this week's show, but I will tell you it was so very rewarding, and I enjoyed it so much. Thank you, Security Credit Union, for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Thank you, Security Credit Union, for supporting our goals and efforts in promoting this outdoor lifestyle.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yeiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy. Once again, Mike Avery here for our number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. And as always, so glad to have you along with us as we continue to talk about this outdoor lifestyle, this lifestyle that so many of us just take for granted. We grew up in it. But in today's world, not everybody agrees with us. You know, there's a certain significant percentage of people here in our great state who don't share this same background, this same passion. And so one of my goals is to try to reach as many people as possible, and if not enroll them into this outdoor lifestyle, at least get people to understand that what we're doing is biologically sound and biologically necessary and just plain fun. And it is so much fun for me to sit here at this microphone every week and just talk about the outdoors. I would like to say that I enjoy every conversation with every guest. But there are certain people that I really look forward to talking with. And I can't think of anybody that I enjoy my conversations more than with Lance Valentine. Sir Lancelot, I call him, of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com, and he's with us once again. Lance, welcome back, buddy.
Good to talk to you, Mike. It's been a little bit of a while, but always good to be on. Appreciate it.
It's been too long, but I've been busy, you've been busy, and just let's take some time here to catch up. How was your spring season?
I'm gonna describe my Detroit River season in 2 words. Number 1 is windy, and number 2 is weird. It was just a really weird year. The weather kind of got everything off, and I was talking to a guy the other day, and I kind of described the spring season in Detroit as a song, and you kind of know the song, and you know all the lyrics. And when I get down there, I try to find out where I am in that song, and then I can just sing along the rest of the year. And I'll tell you what, buddy, it was a lot of skips and a lot of jumps and a lot of a lot of problems with the song this year. It just never really got dialed in. Fishing was good, it's Detroit River, so the fishing was good, and it was, I want to say fairly easy. But man, oh man, it just never got dialed in. The weather was constantly bad, wind, dirty water, rain. Just a lot of really weird things happened this year. So it was a lot tougher than our spring season usually is.
Mother Nature has just not been our friend this spring in general. I mean, you look at the northeast winds, you look at the cold temps. It's been an interesting season.
Yeah, she's definitely been a little cranky this year, so hopefully that kind of settles in.
Well, I'm looking at and it's hard. I cannot believe that this is Memorial Weekend already, but when you look at the weather forecast for the weekend, it's starting to look better. Next week is looking a little better. So where are you now, Lance? Are you up on the bay? Are you up on Saginaw Bay?
So I'm just finishing up on Detroit River, and then I will be on Saginaw Bay starting on June 5th. We start on the bay. So just kind of getting ready to kind of make that transition, take a couple of days off for the holiday weekend, and then we'll be right back at it and get the boat in the water and get ready to go for Saginaw Bay.
By the time you make this change, is it a welcome change to you? Are you just sick of the day-to-day grind of fighting boats and boat traffic and fighting the current and such on the river? Are you looking forward to coming up to the bay?
Yes, I am. Yeah, you described it pretty good. It is it's a 10-hour-a-day grind, and when it gets to the point where fishing's a little bit tougher, you got to move a lot more, you got to think a lot more, and you have to fight the wind and the waves and the current. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a nice change. Now, that doesn't mean that the weather is going to be any nicer on Saginaw Bay, but it is a little easier when you are just kind of trolling and you're just kind of moving the boat and kind of doing that, as opposed to everything you have to do down on the Detroit River, where it's just a little more intense when you're constantly fighting the current and fighting the wind and doing all that stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the change. As much as I love Detroit River, which I do, I'm looking forward to the change. A little bit of different fishing and different sites and a different group of people. We've got a really cool group up there at Linwood Beach. So yeah, looking forward to coming to Saginaw Bay.
You mentioned the fact that you have to think when you're going out on the water. Now, I find this interesting because an average casual weekend warrior, we might put a little bit of thought into what we're doing, but we don't think about it and make a plan and a game plan like you do, Lance. I mean, you look at this whole concept and you dissect it and you plan it out and you have a goal. And you're very specific on how you do things.
Yeah, I like to think that we kind of understand what fish are doing and kind of really want to get into kind of how the fish are moving and how we really need to make adjustments to catch those fish. And I think as you get better at fishing, I've always told, my phrase with you is fishing isn't hard, but it is complicated. And I think as you kind of start to realize more about how important it is to understand, the wind and the waves and the weather and the current and, what bait fish are available and where those bait fish are and kind of how the weather both today and beforehand kind of affects those things. I think when you start to think a little bit more, it's usually a positive. But I will say this year on the Detroit River, with what I just told you about it being different, there were people who came down, one time and probably had better days than some of the charter captains did, because sometimes when you have all this knowledge in you and things aren't happening the way they should, sometimes you kind of freak out and you're like, why is this not happening? And you try to force things, I guess is the word I'll use. You try to make fish be where they're not at. And sometimes when you come down as, a one-time trip, or you've been down, every other week, sometimes just looking at the fishing in a vacuum sometimes can be a positive. But I would tell you day in and day out, understanding what's going on, thinking about those things, and kind of understanding the process of the fishing is going to catch you more fish 99% of the time.
You said you want to understand what fish are doing. How do you do that, Lance? I mean, it's a simple question, but I don't think there's a simple answer to it.
Yeah, there really isn't a simple answer. I think, the biggest thing for me, and we did a live nightly fishing report every night from the Detroit River on the Walleye Zone, and we talked about a lot of these things, and I think a lot of it is you have to make a decision on how important catching fish is to you, right? And if you just want to go fishing and get a report from a day ahead of time, or stop at the tackle store and go fishing, luckily in this part of the world we have places you can go and probably catch some fish most days. But if you're really serious about it, right? I mean, there's so much information. Obviously, the internet gives us information at our fingertips, but I learned it through reading, right? Any book I could find about fishing, I would read. Anything I could watch about fishing, particularly good stuff, in fisherman style stuff, that actually teaches the reasons and the why. It's not just me and Joe went fishing, we use the blue Rapala, right? Those kind of, field and stream articles are what I call them, which don't teach you anything, right? They are nice and they are fun to read, but they don't teach you anything. So there's a lot of information available. I think a lot of it is just how good do you really want to be and how much do you really want to understand. And it starts as simple as your local lake, looking at lake maps, going back through fishing records that you should keep and kind of seeing how fish move, and kind of applying that to this year. Are we early? Are we late as far as water temperature? What happens when the water turns dirty? What happens when the water turns clean? All those things. There's so much information available, number one, to get that you could go read. Number two, that you should be keeping. And I think that's how you become a better angler, is just trying to understand what's happening. I think that is a big part of becoming a better angler.
You mentioned your new platform, the Walleye Zone. How's that going?
It's going pretty well. It's just like I said. When we used to do our Gander, let me back up a little bit. When we used to do our Gander Mountain seminars, we used to introduce everybody, have them stand up and introduce themselves at the start of the 6-week class. And everybody, I'd say, what do you want to get out of this class? Well, I want to do this. So, everybody would say, I want to be a better angler. I want to be a better angler. When we got done, my answer back to them was, do you really? Do you really want to be a better angler? Because I'm not going to teach you about secret spots. I'm not going to teach you about invisible fishing line. I'm going to teach you the process of fishing if you want to learn. And that's kind of what we do at the Walleye Zones. We kind of we want to teach you the process of fishing. Some people don't want to put that work in. They just don't want to put the work in. They just want to be told where to go. They just want to be told what to use, what worked yesterday, and then they're done. So, we build a platform that has some of that there, but the Walleye Zone really focuses on teaching the process of learning how fish move, what bait fish are available, how bait fish act, things you should do. We're working on a process right now of this month we're talking about what to do before you get to the lake. Next month we're going to talk about making decisions when you get to the lake. How do you kind of look at information and kind of make adjustments? Then how do you find the right place to fish? And how do you go that next step, right? Too many people, let's back up. Let's go to Saginaw Bay. I think a lot of people know you got to drive around and find fish. So they find fish and they start fishing. Well, the question I get a lot is, how long do you stay on a pot of fish before you move?
And let's I got to take a break. But these next questions you're bringing up, Lance, how long do you stay there before moving, etc.? Let's answer those in the next segment. We're talking with Lance Valentine, Sir Lancelot of the Walleye Zone, the WalleyeZone.com, the WalleyeZone.com. Lance spent the entire spring on the Detroit River battling that fishery, which is a tremendous resource. Now, he's headed up to Saginaw Bay, which I would like to think is a little more relaxed fishery. You're probably in the summertime not going to get the size of the fish that you will down on the D, but it's a lot of fun. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. You can hear us in Tawas and WIOS. That's 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us in Traverse City, WTCM, 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. The folks from Reader are so good at so many things, whether it's routine lawn maintenance, whether it is putting in a new project, a smaller project, or a big project. Now look at it. If you want to redo your entire backyard and put in hardscapes and stonescapes and water features and stuff, the folks at Reader can help you out. If you just want to replace your beds and you're around the house or the flowers, take out mulch and put in stones or vice versa, Reader can help you out there as well. I have much respect for them because every crew that has ever come to my house, and they do a great job. In fact, since we've last talked, they were there doing some deep root fertilization for the plants and the shrubs. Every crew that comes over, they are hardworking, conscientious, and they do a great job. How much more can you ask? Nothing. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then jump over to a very interesting website. It's the WalleyeZone.com. The WalleyeZone.com is like your one-stop shop for all things fishing online, spearheaded by Lance Valentine, Sir Lancelot, who's with me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Lance, before the break, you brought up a couple of questions. Okay, you get out there, you find fish, but then it's like, well, how long do I stay in a spot if I don't find fish? Some other questions. What are your answers to those common questions that anglers are always asking you?
Yeah, so the answers should be done. The answers should be made beforehand because here's what happens. And this is why I kind of went back to that. Is guys, and I think by this point, I hope in 2025, anglers understand that you can't catch fish where they're not. So they're using their sonar and they are finding. Let's say that they're finding a school of walleyes, and they go, okay, we're good to go. Now, here's where everybody stops. Now the question is, okay, I go through the school of walleye and I catch them. How much further do I go? When do I turn around? When do I do this? If you take an extra 10 or 15 minutes beforehand, so you find that original pot of fish, and now what you do, instead of setting lines, you start to drive. You continue to drive with your sonar on, and you go a little bit east, you go a little bit west, you go a little bit north, you go a little bit south. At some point, you're going to run out of fish. Now what you have is you have these four corners, basically. You save a waypoint when you run out of the fish to the east, and you save a waypoint when you run out of the fish to the west. You save a waypoint at the north and a waypoint at the south. Now you have this box. That's where your fish are. You never leave that box. So once you get to the point where you're coming out of that box, now you start to turn around and come back into that box. Too many people that pot of fish and just travel, and they don't know that school is very small, or that they can go a mile and a half and catch fish, because just a little bit, you're going to go through maybe 2 or 3 minutes of no fishing, and all of a sudden there's another pot of fish. If you do that beforehand, now you have a plan when you're fishing, and you're not worrying about it while you are fishing. Oh, is it time to turn around, or should I turn around? When do I turn around? No, you already know where these pods of fish stop, north, south, east, and west, and now you can actually dial in and stay in that spot and dial in that bite until that bite dies, and then go find yourself another bite, another spot, and start over again.
That's great advice, Lance. But that school of fish, that pod, that square that you've laid out, is going to move.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So here's the key, right? And this is where using waypoints comes in handy. Instead of just dropping waypoints, start dropping waypoints and understand what they say. So keep track of your first waypoint number. So let's say you've got your fish box and you catch a waypoint. You catch a fish and your first waypoint is 001, then 002, then 003, then 004. Now you're out of your box. Now you go back up and you start again. You don't catch any fish at 01. You don't catch any fish at 02. You get a fish at 03, 04. You go a little further, you catch one at 05. Now you've just figured out in 2 passes that pot of fish is moving that direction. So now you don't need to go back up the same amount of distance the next time. You start making your passes shorter on the top and start extending them. So now you've tracked the school of fish to start. And now what you've done is by using waypoints properly, you've started to see where these fish are actually moving. And now you can see, am I on a stationary pot of fish? Am I on a pot of fish that's moving? And which direction are they moving? Now, if you go out of that pot, all of a sudden those fish do move. Now you've got your original square. You know where those fish were. Now you just need to go around that pot in a circle. You're going to find them again, and now you know which way those fish are moving. So you got square one where you caught them. Now you know that they are a half a mile east. Now you know those fish are moving east. So by having that basis of reference to start with, that solid point, now you can start seeing what the fish are actually doing as they adjust, and you're one step ahead now. Instead of always trying to restart over and refigure, you've got a point of reference where they were, where they are now, and now you can start to put together a pattern. You're one step ahead of the fish, not one step behind all the time.
Lance, you always make it sound so simple, but to me, the concept of waypoint management, that's something I struggle with all the time. I mean, I'll look at my graph, and I've got old tracks in there. I've got old waypoints in there. I've got waypoints from years before. I got new waypoints from this year, and I look at it and I go, well, what should be on here? Because I end up making it more confusing, I think, than helpful.
Yeah, my deal is this. You should never have waypoints on your machine that aren't relative to when and where you're fishing. Meaning, when you are on Saginaw Bay in June chasing walleye, you shouldn't have your October perch spots on there. When you are catching fish in July and you're walleye fishing, you shouldn't have your springtime smallmouth bass spots on it, right? You should start sorting your waypoints, and it's fairly easy to do, specifically on a Lowrance unit. It's very simple to do. You should be starting to search your waypoints in groups, right? So, using different, we've talked about this before, using different colors and different symbols. So maybe all your June waypoints are circles. Maybe all your July waypoints are stars. Maybe one year you start with blue and the next year is red, and the next year is yellow, and the next year is green. So now you understand what your waypoints are based on the color and the shape that they are. Mm-hmm. So now you really start to see what's happening, so you don't have this big giant mess of what in the heck happened here. You kind of know exactly what is happening, right? You can do the same thing with your trails, right? June trails can be blue and July trails can be green, and you can start to do all these things inside your machine that nobody does. Everybody's got this machine that's got a bunch of blue and white diamonds on it with these random numbers and this big giant piece of purple spaghetti that goes across their screen, and they go, I can't tell anything. Well, you've got to go into that machine. You've got to figure out how to actually use some of these really cool features and let you kind of dial in. I'm not a track guy. I don't use tracks, right? The only time I use a trail is first pass of the day. So I've got my box figured out. I'll run a trail through there, and I'll start my trail, run through my pot of fish, and stop my trail. So now it's on my screen, but it's not constantly recording. Now what I can do, if I go back on that trail again and the fish don't bite, now I have a reference point. Now I just move a half mile east, half mile west, half mile north, half mile south. Now I start to see these. So imagine what your GPS looks like with the four corners of the box dialed in and one original path. Now if those fish move, you have a reference point, and once you figure out where they are now you know where the fish are going. You're trying to always stay ahead of the movement, not behind. Be proactive, not reactive to what the fish are doing.
And will that movement of that school be bait dependent or wave dependent or wind direction dependent?
Sometimes it's wind, sometimes it's bait, sometimes it's current. We do know, I don't want to say always, because every time you say always about fish, you get kicked. And but I can tell you very, very without question, my first move, if my fish move, fish almost always, especially open water fish, almost always move into the wind. So if you get a situation where your fish are, you got some wind and the fish start to move, my first look is always looking into the wind. Where are those fish going because they almost always move into the wind.
Let me think this through for a second. Why is that? Is the wind pushing bait fish their direction, so they want to be facing that direction, or what?
Well, so think about it, right? If I just let the wind take me, if I just relax, the wind's going to take me wherever it wants to take me. I don't want to go that way. So what I have to do is I have to face my nose into the wind, and I have to kind of fight that wind or fight that current. So I'm almost always moving into that wind, so I have control over where I'm going. The wind isn't just blowing me somewhere that I don't want to go. So that's what happens. Yeah.
Which also then, it's oftentimes in a chop, I will make a downhill troll just because it's more comfortable. But by doing that, I'm also going the direction the fish are facing into anyway. So that's good.
That's actually not a bad idea. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So everything that happens when you're on the water, if you start paying attention, and this is my biggest problem with anglers, if you start paying attention, all of this starts to make sense. Most anglers just get on the water and they just start going, and they're like, okay, they bought today, they did my day. And then what happens is usually those are the anglers that go, oh my gosh, I got to go buy 5 more of these lures because this was a hot lure today. It has nothing to do with that. 99% of the time, the lure has nothing to do other than getting the shape and the size right. There is no perfect lure every day. And here's what I know: you're going to go buy that. You're going to go buy 100 of those because it worked today. It's never going to work again. So understand. Don't worry about what lure you're using. Understand what is happening. Why are the fish going this way? All my fish are moving this way. I'm catching more fish trolling this direction than this direction. Start to put those pieces of the puzzle together, and you'll really start to understand what is happening, and now you can start making better decisions.
I appreciate the fact, Lance Valentine, that when you talk about the mistakes that anglers make, and I know you're talking about me, you don't single it out and say, Mike Avery, this is what you're doing. Because in my mind, I feel like Lance is talking to me, Lance is pointing at me, there's a big arrow pointing right at Mike Avery right now.
Well, here's the thing. I know all this because I've made all these mistakes, right? And I was fortunate to have some good people around me to kind of help me and guide me. So it definitely is something. It's a mistake we all make, right? And trying to learn is a big deal about it, and that's kind of part of what we've done for the last 30 years, and kind of really what we're doing, what we want to do on the Walleye Zone is just teach people the process. If you learn the process, everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're fishing for smallmouth or largemouth or walleyes or northern pike or muskie or perch. The process is the same. Most people don't want to learn the process. They just want to stop at the tackle store, buy what's hot, go to the right spot, and start catching fish.
Okay. Enough of making fun of Avery here, okay? That's enough. Lance, it's always a pleasure. I'm going to let you go because I got some other things I got to talk about. But we'll talk again soon, and we'll pick your brain once again. And just know that I appreciate you. I appreciate your knowledge, and I always appreciate your time, my friend.
My friend, good to talk to you. I can't wait to see you on the bay.
Me too. Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com, thewalleyezone.com. We'll take a break. A few more things to talk about, then we'll wrap it all up with Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WSJM in St. Joe, that's 94.9 FM. And the other side of the state, Saginaw, WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. For this 3 hours, though, I call it the Outdoor Magazine studio. So far, Jonathan Dent has allowed me to get away with that. Now, as John gets a little more experience, a little more confidence, he might just say, this is my studio, because it actually is. It's John's studio. I just am in here for 3 hours each week. So, John, we're good for now, right? Okay, he gives me a smile right now. And just hope, John, that someday in your career, you will have the crowds of people out there. You should see his face right now. It's really red. That Charlie Rude would be if Charlie was in here. But although today it's so rotten and crappy out there that nobody's out there. Isn't this weather so far this spring been something? Now, as I look at the forecast for this weekend, Memorial Weekend, I still can't get over that fact. Looks like maybe things are going to start to turn around. But, boy, the weather has been just atrocious. The northeast winds, strong northeast winds on a regular basis. Speaking of Memorial Weekend, I would ask you to keep in mind the reason for this season is to honor those who have lost their lives in service of this country. It's easy to forget when you want to go fishing or play golf or fire up the grill in the patio or the backyard or whatever. But, you know, those people and their families that have lost so much, they did this so you and I can go out and play golf and go fishing and have fun. So please, I would ask you to keep that in mind. A big before I do this, just confirmed that Amy Trotter is going to join me next week for Wednesday Night Live. She was actually supposed to join me a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of slipped through both of our schedules, but I will take responsibility for that. Next Wednesday, Wednesday Night Live, 7 o'clock, on my social media outlets, MUCC Executive Director Amy Trotter will join me for Wednesday Night Live. That is one of our more popular segments. Amy does a wonderful job. She is very articulate, very knowledgeable. This will be your chance to tune in and talk directly with the Executive Director of MUCC, Amy Trotter. That's next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on my social media outlets. If you go to my social feeds, you will see that big congrats to my grandson, Trent. We were able to get it done. I told you at the beginning of this turkey season, my goal this year, this spring, was to get Trent his first bird. We did it. We did it. And it was such an enjoyable and exciting and fulfilling experience. I'm done. I didn't fill my tag. I don't even feel a need to fill my tag because we got Trent his first bird, and it was really something special. I was with Trent in a blind with Trent and his dad when he took his first deer when he was just a little guy, and I often use that as people say, Avery, what was your best hunt ever? Well, watching Trent get his first deer, and it was just a little spike, was one of my most enjoyable hunting experiences ever. Now, some 15 years later, as Trent is 23 years old, to sit in a blind with him and call in a bird for him, his first bird, it was just so very cool. Thank you, Scott Gatza, my buddy, for allowing us access to your wonderful piece of heaven there. Scott has been very generous with his access to that. And the difference here was this hunt, I actually put out a Jake decoy. Now, earlier in the week, I had been out there with Trent at Scott's place, and I had 2 hen decoys in a food plot in front of us. Called a bird in. He did not gobble until I got real aggressive. In fact, we didn't even know he was there till I got aggressive because he was hiding around a corner. He could see the decoys. We couldn't see him. He would not come in. Those 2 hen decoys were not enough to bring him in. So, based on my experience of previous late season hunts, this last time we went out, I put out a Jake decoy over a hen decoy. My thinking is, at this point in the season, when the hens are not as accessible, a lot of them are sitting on nests, that a big old Tom, a big old longbeard, just cannot take it when he sees a Jake in a field with one of his girls. And it worked this time as well. We were out there for an hour. I did some calls. We could see a hen coming in from the right. I knew I had called her in. What we didn't know right away was she was followed by a longbeard. He was not a gobbler in this case because he never made a noise. He sees this Jake decoy over a hen, and he can't stand it. He literally ran into the decoys. He strutted up. He circled around the decoy. I'm like, Trent, there's your bird. Take your time. Don't get excited. When you're ready, wait till he raises his head and make your shot. Trent did a wonderful job. The Tom circled around behind the Jake decoy. He went out of strut. He raised his head up. Boom. Trent dropped the hammer on him and dropped the bird in his tracks. And it was so cool. It was so rewarding. It was so wonderful to be able to take your grandson out and help him get his first bird. For me, at least, it was just very emotional, very, very thrilling, a lot of fun, and just a blessing from above. So thank you, Lord, for letting us experience that. And good job, Trent. Good job, T-Man. You did a wonderful job. All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I don't think he has a turkey recipe this week. I don't think it's a small trout recipe, but I think it might be a fish recipe. The only way to find out is to hang around for a few more minutes as we come back and wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar here on the Outdoor Magazine show. My name is Mike Avery. I'm the host of this show. You can learn more about me online, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Thank you so much for joining me this week here on the Outdoor Magazine show. I do certainly appreciate it. Also appreciate the fact that it's become a tradition here, and I can rely on wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar to help us wrap up each week's show. He's with us once again. David, I expected we would get some comments on the goose-eagle statements last week. Fortunately, I didn't hear a thing. How about you?
No. I figured you'd catch some flack from that, Michael.
I figured I would too.
Your comments were blunt and to the point.
As they often, unfortunately, are. But I avoided it. Nobody gave me any grief, so we're good to go. What do you got for us this week, David?
Well, no, there's no more little geese. I think the girl got them all.
She did. The eagle got them all?
Yep. Yeah, she
well,
got all the baby, all the young geese.
Well, I'll say it once again. God bless the eagle.
Really, that's what I thought, too. So, all right, we're on page 35 in the cookbook. We have stuffed trout with dried Traverse City cherries. Terry, stop.
Excellent. Go ahead, David.
Okay. No, we're in the car, so.
That's fine, yeah.
We got 4 cleaned and deboned trout, large enough to stuff, flour to dredge, juice of a lemon, juice of a large orange. And this is really a great dish. I mean, if you're up north and you're catching some fish near Traverse City, couldn't be more apropos. So you need 2 cups of cube bread, small cube, maybe half inch by half inch, 2 eggs beaten well, half a cup of diced onions, pretty fine, 1/3 cup each of red, green, yellow pepper or orange, a couple ounces of black cherry schnapps, 3/4 of a cup of dried cherries, and you can get them in any good grocery store, which is a blessing. You need a tablespoon of leaf tarragon, or whatever your favorite spice, but basil would be good too. 3 cloves of garlic, 2 tablespoons of parsley chopped up, half a stick of butter, 3/4 of a cup of white wine, and some olive oil to saute. So you're going to bone the fish from the inside out. We've talked about that numerous times. So in a small amount of olive oil or butter, you can saute the onions, the tarragon, the peppers, the garlic for just a couple minutes to break the flavor loose to start the cooking process. So in a large mixing bowl, large enough to hold all the ingredients, add the bread cubes, beaten eggs, 3/4 of the citrus. You want to save a splash for sauce, the vegetables, the schnapps, the dried cherries, half the parsley, and blend them very well. If it's too soupy, you want to maybe add a little bit more breadcrumbs instead of the cube bread, because the breadcrumbs would bring it back together. So you want to fill the body cavity all the way up to the head, because you're going to have the gills out of it, and that's a nice spot to stuff some of the dressing in there too. So you're going to roll the fish lightly in flour in a hot pan with an oven-proof handle. Brown the fish on both sides. And if you don't have a pan big enough to hold them all, I would suggest using a casserole. so that you could put it in the 350-degree oven, uncovered for about 15 minutes or so, or until because there's eggs in it, you want to get the internal temperature to about 180 degrees. And then you're going to remove, after you're done, you're going to remove this to a plate, and you're going to take a fork and use the tines of the fork and roll back the skin, starting at the head all the way down to the tail. So put them on your plates, and then we're going to wipe the pan out, all of the scraps with a paper towel, return it to a burner, and then the sauce is going to be a splash of cherry schnapps, lemon juice, orange juice, white wine, half a stick of butter, and a teaspoon of parsley. Reduce it down till it's thick and creamy, and spoon it over each fish. This is a killer way to use some of the northern Michigan trout.
And that's on page 35 of the cookbook, if anybody still has that around. And I've got to tell you, Dave, that my grandson Trent, we got him his first bird last night, in fact. We got it back to the house. We breasted it out. We took the legs off, and he is so excited about, he was excited to take his first bird. Now he's excited to cook this thing up too. So it was
great.
The whole experience, of the anticipation of the hunt, the harvest, and now looking forward to how it's going to taste on the table. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, listen,
Makes me feel proud.
Well, I believe me, I was about as proud as a grandpa could possibly be. All right, buddy. Oh, and a reminder, if folks want to try your cooking in person, you are cooking at the King's Dish in Standish which nights of the week?
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Specials.
Excellent, David.
We had bluegill one night. We had perch one night. We had elk medallions. So we're going to do a chicken marsala, and then we'll do a venison marsala after that.
Excellent, David. Keep up the good work. We'll talk again next week. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I do want to hear from you. A reminder, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, will join me next Wednesday night on Wednesday Night Live. Sign up for the golf outing Friday, July 25th. Go to mucc.org/golf and keep an ear out for details on the Rapid River, the Mike Avery Outdoors signature Rapid River knife. That's coming up soon.